You may not feel it now, but time has a quiet way of collecting our choices. Not all at once, but little by little. The words we didn't say, the doctor's appointment we pushed off, the friend we meant to call back, but didn't. These don't seem urgent in the moment, but when you look back, from 80 or beyond, they echo. And the truth? It's not the big mistakes that follow you into old age. It's the small, invisible ones. The things you didn't fix when you still could. In this video, we're going to talk about 7 of them. The quiet habits, mindsets, and decisions that too many people don't realize are shaping their future until it's too late. And if even one of these sounds familiar, don't panic. You still have time to change the ending. The body whispers before it screams. I remember hearing those words from a soft-spoken man in his late 80s. His hands trembled slightly as he folded them in his lap, eyes distant, voice heavy. I ignored it, he said, because it didn't seem big enough to matter. And now, I'd give anything to go back to that moment. He was talking about a twinge in his chest. It came and went. Nothing sharp, nothing dramatic. Just a strange pressure whenever he climbed the stairs. He had plans to get it checked, but life kept getting in the way. A family visit, a busy week, a holiday. Then one morning the pain came back, only stronger. This time he ended up in the ER. By then, the doctors told him he had missed the window. If we'd caught this 6 months ago, they said, we could have managed it with just medication and lifestyle changes. Instead, it became a cascade. Surgeries, hospital stays, mobility lost. And that's what people never talk about enough. It's not just about preventing death, it's about protecting quality of life. The ability to walk to the mailbox without gasping for air, to travel without fear, to sleep without pain, to lift your grandchild and feel strong. All of that can begin to fade because of a single missed moment, a checkup you postponed, a symptom you brushed off. It's not about paranoia, it's about presence, listening to your body while it's still whispering. Because when the whisper turns into a scream, the options are fewer, the road is harder, and the regret is heavier than most people expect. So let this be a gentle reminder, not to panic, but to pay attention. Is something new bothering you, even if it feels small? Have you been putting off that blood pressure check, that mole, that strange fatigue? At 80, you won't regret a 30-minute appointment that gave you peace of mind, but you might regret the year you spent waiting for it to feel serious enough. Your health is not a crisis waiting to happen. It's a quiet garden. The earlier you tend it, the more it will grow with you. Letting important relationships fade away. It doesn't happen with a bang. It happens with a pause, a delay. You mean to call them back, but you don't. You see their name on your phone and think, I'll respond tomorrow. Then the seasons change, and so does the relationship. You tell yourself you're just giving them space, but space left unattended becomes distance, and distance, if ignored long enough, becomes regret. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that shows up when you're lying in bed at night, wondering why that person hasn't called in years, only to realize they're probably wondering the same about you. I once met an 84-year-old woman named Clara, a soft-spoken painter who lived alone with her memories and her cat. She had a son, Paul. We were close once, she said, holding a faded photograph in her lap, until we weren't. One disagreement over money, nothing explosive, just a few tense words, a long silence, and then nothing. I thought we needed space, she said. I thought he'd come around. But space turned into silence, and silence turned into years. She still had his number. She looked at it often, but she never called. He should reach out first, she told herself. Then one day she found out from a cousin that Paul had passed away. Heart failure, age 58. Her voice cracked. I thought we had more time. That was the last thing she ever said about him. At 80, this is the regret that clings the longest. Not the argument itself, not the stubbornness, but the silence. Because silence gets heavy with age. Not hearing their laugh at dinner, not seeing their name pop up on your birthday, not knowing if they're okay, and eventually, not being able to fix it. We fool ourselves into thinking we have time, that next week is a promise, that people will always be there when we're finally ready to make things right. But life moves forward, whether we do or not. And before we know it, the people we love most have become memories we tiptoe around. So ask yourself right now, who did you love that you let go of? Not because of something unforgivable, but because of something unfinished. A hurt that never healed, a phone call you never made, a letter you started but never sent. You don't have to make it perfect. You don't even have to say everything. Just start. I was thinking about you. I miss you. I'm sorry. That's all it takes to build a bridge. One sentence, one spark. Because when you're 80, you'll remember the ones who came back into your life, and you'll wish you had reached for the ones who didn't. Don't let silence be the last thing between you. You're not too late. Not yet. There's a moment that happens around 75 or 80 when you try to do something you've done 1,000 times before. Reach for a plate, climb a set of stairs, bend down to tie your shoe, and suddenly your body hesitates. Not because it forgot, but because it can't. Your legs feel heavier than they used to. Your balance isn't what it once was, and the strength that used to feel permanent has quietly slipped away while you weren't looking. That's the thing about the body. It doesn't send out warnings in red letters. It just gets quieter and slower until one day you realize that you've lost something you didn't even know was leaving. It happens to almost everyone. A busy schedule, a sore knee, a cold winter that keeps you inside. You start skipping walks. You sit a little longer. You tell yourself you'll stretch tomorrow or next week or once the weather warms up. But the body doesn't wait for the weather. It listens to your habits. And when the message it hears is inactivity, it begins to shut down. Muscles shrink, joints stiffen, bones weaken. And what was once a quick walk to the mailbox becomes a cautious shuffle. The saddest part? Most people don't realize it's happening until they're already relying on a cane or out of breath from just crossing the room. I spoke to a man named Raymond once, 79 years old. He had been a carpenter, built his own home with his hands, strong as an oak tree, his wife used to say. But after retirement, he started spending more time in his recliner. I earned the rest, he said, and he had. But rest, when it stretches too long, turns to rust. A decade later, he needed help getting out of bed. It wasn't an accident, he told me. It was neglect. Not the loud kind. Just little moments I didn't use my legs when I still could. And that's the heartbreak of it. It's not dramatic, it's gradual. So gradual that you don't even notice what you're losing until you try to reach for it again. And it's gone. Independence, confidence, the joy of movement. These aren't things you just get back with a few stretches. They take time to build, but they can vanish in months of sitting too much, walking too little, and telling yourself that rest is what you need, when really your body is begging for motion. At 80, many people look back and realize it wasn't disease that stole their strength. It was comfort, convenience, a culture that said, "You've earned your rest," instead of one that said, "Let's keep you moving." The human body is built for motion, no matter your age. It responds to effort. It strengthens with challenge, even gentle challenge. A 10-minute walk, light stretches in the morning, a few stairs instead of the elevator. These things may seem small in the moment, but they are the roots of independence later on. It doesn't take hours in a gym or training like an athlete. It just takes consistency, respect, treating your body like a tool you still need, and sharpening it a little every day. Because at 80, you'll miss the little things. Lifting your own groceries, dancing a slow song at a wedding, getting down on the floor to play with your grandchild without wondering how you'll get back up. And those things don't disappear overnight. They're lost through years of quiet inaction. So if you're watching this and thinking, "It's been a while since I really moved," let that be your signal. Not of guilt, but of possibility. You still can. Maybe not like you used to, maybe not fast, but movement is still yours. Don't wait until it's a memory. Reclaim it while you can. Because one day when your legs tremble just standing up, you'll look back at this moment and you'll wish you had walked a little more, stretched a little deeper, reached just a bit higher. Not to change how your body looked, but to protect what it lets you do. There's something uniquely painful about words left unsaid. Not because they were wrong or hurtful, but because they were true and never spoken. At 80, many people carry a weight they can't quite name, and often it's this: the apology they never gave, the love they never said out loud, the forgiveness they held back for too long. We grow up thinking we have time, that there'll be a better moment, that people already know how we feel. But the truth is, no one hears what you don't say. Maybe it started with your father. He was proud of you, but never told you, so you learned to stay quiet too. Maybe it was your sister. You wanted to tell her you missed her, but the years passed, and then the words felt too far away. Or maybe it's your children now. You think they know I love them, but do they really? Have you ever sat down, looked them in the eye and said it, without a birthday or a reason, just because it needed to be said? I once met a woman named Elise. She was 83, living in a small assisted living room filled with photos, her wedding day, her kids, old holiday memories. She pointed to a picture of her daughter and said, "That one, she always thought I favored her brother." I asked her if she ever told her daughter that wasn't true. Elise looked down at her hands and said, "No, I kept thinking I would, but then the years just moved on." Her daughter still visited, but there was always a tension, a polite distance, and Elise knew exactly why. But by the time she was ready to say the words, she couldn't find the moment. "I was waiting for the perfect time," she said, "but I think I missed it." That's the tragedy. We wait. We rehearse the words in our heads. We tell ourselves we'll say it next time, but next time isn't guaranteed. And even when it is, the door may not be open the way it used to be. People change, distance hardens, and sometimes the person we want to speak to isn't there anymore. Not emotionally or not physically. And we're left with echoes, conversations that never happened, reunions that never came. You see, at 80, what hurts most isn't what people said to you. It's what you wish you had said to them. "I'm proud of you. I forgive you. I was wrong. Thank you for everything you did. I love you." These are not just words. They're bridges. And when left unsaid, the space between people gets wider and colder and sometimes permanent. And it's not just about the hard things. Sometimes the regret is not expressing joy, not celebrating the people you loved out loud, not telling your spouse how much you appreciated the way they made coffee every morning, not telling your friend that they helped you through your darkest time, not telling your child that they became everything you hoped for and more. The moments were there, but the words didn't come. And that silence, it follows you, because we assume people know. But people don't carry our intentions. They carry our expressions. What you say is what they remember. What you never said, that becomes the story they tell themselves. And often it's incomplete. So if you're still here and there's someone on your mind, say it. Write the letter. Pick up the phone. Send the message. Don't wait for a funeral to speak well of someone. Don't wait for a diagnosis to open your heart. Let your words live where they matter, while the person is still here to hear them. Because at 80, you won't regret the emotion in your voice, the crack in your throat, or the tear that fell when you finally said what you needed to say. But you will regret the quiet, the held-back truth, the goodbye you whispered too late. You still have time. Use it. When you're 40, you worry about bills, your job, the way people see you, the noise the car is making, the look someone gave you at dinner. You lie awake wondering what tomorrow will bring, how you'll be perceived, whether you said the right thing. By 50, you're still worried about your health, your kids, the choices you made, whether you're behind in life, whether you've done enough. At 60, the worries shift again. Retirement, savings, the house, the future. And then something unexpected happens. You turn 80 and realize almost none of it mattered the way you thought it did. The money you stressed over, you spent it or you didn't. Either way, you're not thinking about your bank account when you're lying in a hospital bed staring at the ceiling. The opinions you obsessed over? Most of those people aren't even in your life anymore. Some are gone. Some were never really watching. You worried about being good enough, thin enough, smart enough, respected enough. But at 80, you realize the only thing that truly mattered was, were you kind? Did you love? Were you present? I met a man once, 82, named George. He was the kind of man who always kept his lawn perfect. Shirt always tucked in. He was respected, professional, precise. But behind his measured smile was a man who had lived most of his life in a low, quiet hum of anxiety. I spent 40 years worrying about things that didn't happen, he said, and now I wish I had just taken a breath. I missed so many moments because my mind was somewhere else. You see, the things that steal your peace don't always announce themselves as threats. Sometimes it's the small things, the email you reread 5 times, the offhand comment that played on repeat in your head, the fear that you weren't doing enough. But what no one tells you is that worry doesn't prevent the bad. It only robs the good. It takes you out of the moment you're in and puts you in a future that doesn't exist yet, or a past you can't change. And here's the secret people at 80 start to see clearly. Most of the things you feared never came true. Most of the scenarios you played out at 3 a.m., they were ghosts. They took your energy, your joy, your sleep, and gave you nothing in return. And even when the hard things did happen, the diagnosis, the loss, the pain, your worry didn't soften the blow. What helped you survive wasn't fear. It was the people you loved, the habits that grounded you, the grace you gave yourself, the breath you remembered to take. At 80, people don't talk about how they should have worried more. They talk about how they wish they had laughed louder, rested more fully, danced when they had the chance, and stopped trying to control things that were never theirs to hold. They wish they had forgiven themselves sooner, said it's okay more often. Let go of the shame and the guilt and the pressure and the noise, because that's what worry really is, noise, and it drowns out the music of life when you let it. So here's what I want you to know. The things you're worrying about right now, most of them will pass. Some won't even matter a month from now. Some will work themselves out, and others, they're just not worth the weight you're giving them. Your mind deserves rest, your heart deserves peace, and your life, your one precious life, deserves to be lived with more presence than fear. You still have time to put it down, to take the walk without rushing, to sit in the sun without checking your phone, to let the dishes wait, to breathe, to smile, to trust that you're doing better than you think. Because when you reach 80, you won't remember what went wrong on a Tuesday in March. But you will remember the day you finally stopped letting worry write your story and started living it for real. You were there, but not really. You smiled in the photos. You nodded in the conversations. You checked the boxes. The dinner was made. The gifts were wrapped. The trip was planned. But your mind, it was somewhere else. On the next thing, the next worry, the next task, always moving forward, never stopping long enough to feel the moment you were in. And now you're 80. The house is quiet. The calendar's not so full. The days stretch longer, slower, and you find yourself reaching for memories. Not just the big ones, but the little ones you wish you had lingered in just a little longer. The smell of your child's hair after a bath, the sound of laughter at the dinner table, the quiet look your partner gave you when they thought you weren't watching. But here's what no one tells you in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. Those moments don't announce themselves as important. They arrive quietly, as Tuesday mornings, as messy kitchens, as your kid asking to show you something for the 5th time. And more often than not, we're too busy to notice them, or too distracted to really feel them. We tell ourselves we'll savor it next time. When things calm down, when the house is clean, when there's less on our mind. But next time doesn't always come. I met a man named Louis, 85 years old, widowed. He sat in his living room surrounded by framed photos. Grandkids, his late wife, birthdays, holidays. He pointed to a photo of his daughter at age 7, grinning with frosting on her nose. I remember that day, he said. I remember setting up the party, making sure everyone had what they needed. But I don't remember just watching her smile. I was too busy hosting, making sure it all went right. and now that memory's faded. I wish I'd just sat beside her, just for a minute. That's what regret looks like at 80. It's not always about the big decisions. It's about the little moments we let pass us by in pursuit of perfection, productivity, or simply because we thought we had more time. We forget that presence is a gift, not just to others, but to ourselves. When you're truly present, when you feel the sun on your face instead of just walking through it, when you hear your loved one's voice without planning your response, when you taste your coffee instead of sipping it while scrolling through a screen, that's when life imprints itself on your soul. That's when time slows down enough to be remembered. But when you rush, when your mind is elsewhere, moments blur, years vanish, and one day you're sitting alone in your favorite chair, wondering why it all feels like a dream you can't quite recall. Here's the truth. No one gets to rewind, but everyone gets to choose, right now, to pay attention, to lift their head, to hold the hug 1 second longer, to listen all the way to the end of the story, to notice the color of the sky instead of just walking under it, to say, I'm here, fully, undistracted, undivided, because the memories that keep you warm at 80 won't be the ones where everything went perfectly. They'll be the ones where you were fully there, laughing, listening, loving, without checking the clock, without thinking about what came next. So give yourself that gift now. Be where your feet are, because presence turns fleeting minutes into forever. And when you're 80, that's what you'll wish you had more of. At 80, there's a kind of silence that settles over your life, not just because the house is quieter or the days are slower, but because the distractions are gone, the expectations fade, the race is over, and in that silence, the question becomes loud. Did I live the life I wanted, or the one I thought I was supposed to live? Most people don't even realize they've veered off course. It starts so early. You do what's expected. You follow the rules. You take the job that makes sense. You say yes when you wanted to say no. You say no to things that call to your soul because someone else might not approve. You play the role. You wear the smile. You do your best. And you tell yourself, one day, I'll do what I really want. But the days pass, then decades, and that one day becomes a locked door you forgot how to open. I once spoke with a woman named Margaret, 86 years old. She was quiet, thoughtful, kind. She had raised 4 children, stayed married for over 50 years, volunteered in her community, kept a beautiful home. I lived a good life, she said. Then she looked down at her hands and whispered, but I don't know if it was my life. She had always wanted to be a teacher. She loved literature, loved language, but her father thought college was a waste for a girl. Her husband wanted her home with the children, so she never applied, never spoke up, never tried. She said, I told myself it was fine, that I was happy, and she was in many ways, but a part of her had been boxed away, untouched, for over 60 years. I wonder what kind of woman I might have been, she said, if I had ever truly chosen for myself. And that's the regret so many carry at the end. I don't really know who I could have been, because I never let myself find out. They wore the clothes others liked, took the safe path, buried the art, the music, the travel, the books they wanted to write, because it wasn't practical, or it wasn't the right time, or someone told them they weren't good enough. But here's what you learn when the years are nearly gone. There is no perfect time. There is no right way to live that applies to everyone. The only wrong way is the one that erases your soul. You were not born to play a part in someone else's idea of life. You were born with your own compass, your own wonder, your own colors, and even if the world didn't understand them, they were yours, and they mattered. The saddest stories at 80 aren't about failure. They're about never trying, about never saying, this is who I am, about realizing too late that the people you were trying to please are no longer here. And now you're left with questions you can't answer and pieces of yourself you never let breathe. But it's not too late. If you're listening to this, if your heart is still beating, you still have time. Time to say what you really feel, to do what lights you up, even if it's small, to walk away from what drains you, to stop apologizing for the way your soul is wired. Living true to yourself isn't selfish. It's sacred, Because only you will be there at the very end, replaying your life like a film. You want to recognize the person on screen. You want to feel proud of the risks you took, the passions you followed, the voice you finally gave yourself permission to use. You don't need everyone to understand. You just need to stop waiting for permission. Because the deepest peace at 80 comes from knowing, I didn't abandon myself. So start now. Write the poem, paint the thing, say no, say yes, speak the truth, change your mind, change your path, make mistakes that are truly yours. Because one day you'll look back and you'll either smile with quiet pride or ache with questions that never found their answers. Maybe you recognized one of these regrets, maybe more than one. But here's what matters most. You're not 80, not yet. And that means you still have time. Time to speak, to move, to forgive, to return, to let go of what never really mattered and hold tight to what always did. Your story isn't over. The pages ahead are still blank, and the pen is still in your hand. So if there's one truth to take with you, let it be this. It's never too late to live in a way that leaves nothing important unsaid, unfelt, or unlived. Not perfectly, just honestly. Because the person you'll be at 80 is quietly watching the choices you make today. Make them proud. If something in this video spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Leave a comment below. Tell us which moment stayed with you. Your words might help someone else feel less alone. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to them. Sometimes a quiet video can open a very big door. Subscribe if you'd like more reflections like this. No noise, no hype, just gentle reminders about what truly matters. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next chapter.